Welcome back, South Philly Sauce and Odyssey Original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. A bonus episode for you this week. Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti, because the Flyers have a coach. We are here at the Wells Fargo Center coming off fresh Rick Tocchet's intro press conference. A lot to get into. Really special day for the Flyers. It is very clear that everyone is excited about this hire, and rightfully so. And there are a lot of things that stood out in his press conference. One, it's a really cool full circle moment, I think. I was just watching Coach Tocchet walk around the building, and everyone knows him. And he was saying hello to the security guards and team personnel. And even though it's been 20 years, a lot of these people are still here from his playing days. It's a really unique angle.
Yeah, and it's not just his playing days, Ashlyn. I mean, he was with you weren't here, but no. He was on the post-game show, pre-game show.
He gets us.
He would bring dinner in every night.
I hope he still does.
Tell Hartnell that
Hartnell brings us like once a year.
Well, no, they can't complain about Hartsey. He's really good.
He's good to us.
He really is. But Tocchet, I don't think it was really that us he wanted to feed. I think it was himself he wanted to feed, because
bring up the soup.
every night, I'm telling you, this bothers me to no end. Between him and Jonesy, every time you go to dinner or they order something, he'd order some big meal in here, but it had to start with soup. I mean, I don't care what time it is. Like if I'm going to dinner, I'm figuring it's like 8 o'clock, right? Who goes to dinner at 4:30 and orders soup?
Well, an 80-year-old.
An 80-year-old. Yeah. Those two, but it was. But he had fun here. It was really cool, and it was amazing because, in addition to the coaching stuff, he was really sought after as a TV personality on TNT. I mean, I can only imagine. Everybody says everything about that NBA show with Shaq and Barkley. I think with Biz and Toc, I think they were really looking to say, we could really hit a home run with this thing. But I think ultimately, like you said, it was like, God wants a coach.
Yeah.
And he's a really, really good coach. I think underrated by the fans here. I'm a little confused as to why there would be some pushback here in terms of, oh, here they go again, another ex-Flyer. He's so far. You just did an interview with him, right? It's like he's so far from being the ex-Flyer. I think that's kind of diminishes what they've got here as a coach.
I agree. And that interview is going to come out starting at Monday morning on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And you'll hear in that interview almost a little defensive, I think, because they all hear the narrative. And even on WIP, I was hosting Thursday night, 11 o'clock to 2 a.m., and I got a couple of calls disagreeing with this move, saying that the Flyers are going backwards. They're doing what they always do. I think it's really important to remember how many steps have been in between Tocchet being here with the Flyers as a player to what he's accomplished. I mean, coaching Sidney Crosby, coaching on Team Canada. His resume is really impressive, and he got not defensive, but he pushed back on that narrative saying, I haven't been here for 20 years. Like, do you think I was just ordering soup for 20 years? Like, I've been doing stuff to get this job here for 20 years.
Yeah, and I think also, I think when you looked at it, I think some of it probably comes from, him and Jonesy were good friends, Berube. I thought it was a really good move by the Flyers to just have Danny Briere with Rick Tocchet up there.
Yeah.
Because
let's just talk hockey.
It's talk hockey. And Danny Briere, although he comes across pretty smooth, he can, we've had a lot of issues here with things that have gone on. He's a killer.
Yeah.
And there's just no way Danny Briere is hiring somebody because it's a feel-good thing for somebody coming home. No, he doesn't care about that. It's absolutely bottom line. This was the best guy. The people that he's coached made better. And just as importantly, the people who respect him. And I think a lot of this has to do with people that will be attracted to come here because Rick Tocchet's here as a coach. I think I think the Flyers won a derby in this case, not just against, as I mentioned, NHL teams, but against a pretty big television network.
That guy had options, a lot of options, and all really good options, high-paying options. So it's clear that he wants to keep this coaching career alive. And the biggest question I think a lot of us are getting is, how is this different from John Tortorella? This is, as advertised, Rick Tocchet, quote unquote, an old school style coach. But what you'll see in this interview that we just did, the biggest difference I know is from how he already is communicating different than Torts, is Rick Tocchet was talking about how he has a checklist, and he goes through this with his staff. It was really interesting. He has every player's name on the checklist, and he makes sure to check off their name that he's seen them once every 3 days. And it doesn't matter if you're a Sidney Crosby, It doesn't matter if you're a Cam York. He wants to sit down, whether that's coffee, lunch, or dinner, with each player every 3 days. And the difference with Torts, we all know, was that open door policy, which sounded great, but the player had to go seek out the coach's time, where now it's vice versa.
Yeah, the door swings both ways. You can come in and see me, or I'll go see you. Now, I don't think this should get into like torching Torts. So
no way.
He was here to develop players, and he did a good job, I thought, of developing players and having that honesty. And that Tocchet will bring that. He is like Torts in terms of discipline. Yeah, play away from the puck, all of that stuff. But he has a different approach in terms of communication. I think that's one of his biggest strengths is his communication. If there's a fault, it will be over communication.
Yeah, it seemed that way. But I was really surprised by the checklist. I'm like, gosh, we got to talk to Cam York every 3 days, but that's the way he coaches. He wants to make sure every player is heard. And he talked about the importance of having one-on-one dinners with these guys. And it was interesting to hear. And I think when people say a player's coach, that's what that showed me.
Yeah, a player's coach, and a player's coach in terms of star players and every player. Like when you're his best friends are like Gretzky and Lemieux and Crosby, guys like that. Those are elite in the history of the National Hockey League. But then to relate to the fourth line players, because he knows what it takes to get it done. That, I think, is the strength that he has here as a coach. What he did with teams that really didn't have much of a shot in Arizona. Tampa was a mess when he took over there. I mean, to kind of go through that. So I think he looked at this in terms of this is a pretty good opportunity here to grow with this team. I don't know what the contract is, but I'm thinking if you're Rick Tocchet and you have options, I'm thinking you're in here for a long haul.
Better be long term.
It better be 4 or 5 years to get this and to have some input into what's going on and to really get along with Briere and Jones, obviously, and Dan Hilferty.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think now the next step is what's going to happen here. What can we expect with this Flyers team now that they have a coach, now that they're moving forward? While Danny Briere was a bit hesitant, I thought, when John Tortorella was let go, that this is still a rebuild process, that they're not going to go guns blazing. I feel like the narrative has changed a little bit, especially talking to Tocchet with his conversations with leadership. He just told me in the interview that they're swinging the bats, that they're getting free agents, and it sounds like they're getting free agents here shortly. And maybe that's Tocchet saying he wanted that to be here in Philadelphia, but Tocchet was talking about in this interview how they're aggressive, they have money, let's spend it, let's swing the bats, let's get going here, which I know is going to be music to Flyers fans' ears.
Yeah, I think whether it's this year or next year, because he did mention in the news conference the salary cap situation.
Yeah.
So you might be on deck still.
Yeah.
Then get up there and swing the bat. So I think he's looking at it in terms of, again, a longer term view of this thing. I'm not just here for 1 year, that we're going to be able to do this. And he's going to attract those people that they can take a run at when they come. Plus, it was pretty impressive that he would come in and you get a new coach. And usually it's like, well, I've got this guy and I've got this guy. But it's like, I know what they have in the pipeline. Mm-hmm. I know some of these prospects coming up. I like what I see there. So kind of like Torts in that Torts kind of was into the whole thing. Like I'm here to build this thing the right way. Yeah, I'm going to see this thing through. But I do think you're absolutely right. Like there's not going to be much patience in terms of let's get something in here. We've got to do something, and we'll see what happens in the goaltending situation. I don't care how good a coach you are. If you don't fix that situation there on what went on, you're really. And sometimes I think when you hire a new coach, it puts pressure, the pressure from the fans, not to be dismissive, but that can't really matter that much to a front office.
Especially in Philadelphia.
No. But the pressure that you hired this coach, that you have to give him more cards. Mm-hmm. I think that
I can't lie on him.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that's where you're going to see there might be a quicker pace to this right now.
Agreed. And I love that Rick Tocchet was asked about the power play in the press conference. I was like, let's go. Let's get into this. It's been too long. I want a little power play break.
Yeah.
Didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about it forever. They had, John LeClair's here. But what I find with the power play is now when you've got Tocchet, he was like when he had star players, when he had Malkin in Pittsburgh, where they won twice when he was an assistant coach. Malkin's one of the few guys that I think responded to Tocchet. Mm-hmm. So I think, and he was known as a whisperer to certain players here. And I think with Michkov, I think that's what he's going to work on here.
Yeah.
What combination is going to make Michkov the best player that he can be here? He having the association with high-end players like Malkin, like Crosby, Gretzky. He knows when a player has that next plateau.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to find out for himself about Michkov. We kind of know because even though it's limited with his speech, we know what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to lead. He wants to lead the league in goal scoring.
Yeah,
he wants to do that
and lead the power play.
And I think Tocchet's ability to kind of interact and get the best out of the best is what we're going to look for, and especially I think on the power play, that's where it's going to show up.
Yeah, I don't think it was a secret when Tocchet was asked about the power play, how he said that he wants to unleash offensive potential. And again, not knocking Torts, but we know how defensively structured Torts was, which I do think Tocchet will be that. I don't think it's a secret. He sees the potential. He doesn't think it's unlocked. He thinks there's more here to the story, which I think anyone watching Flyers hockey will agree that there's more upside here than what was shown.
Yeah, that defensive structure you have to have. I mean, I think it must have driven him crazy in Vancouver with Pettersson out there, a guy that just away from the puck, they couldn't make him play the right way. That is in place now with what Tortorella did. That stuff is in place. And so that will really, really help getting to that next level and unleash it, as they say. Now, we'll see what happens with the assistant coaches. Bradshaw leaving, and we'll see who's available, what he brings in. But you kind of owe it to a coach to bring in the people that you trust, especially to get this power play cranked up.
Yes, that is definitely a must at the next Flyers season. But exciting stuff here at the Wells Fargo Center as Rick Tocchet was named the new coach of the Flyers, and now a very busy offseason keeps going here for the Flyers. Thanks for tuning into South Philly Sauce, an Odyssey original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We'll see you next week.